Welcome back to the Point 3 podcast. Today we are diving into a major turning point in Marvel history, Hickman's Fantastic Four, 570 to 588. This is where Jonathan Hickman's legendary run begins, reshaping Marvel's first family. We're talking about science. We are talking about multiversal madness. We are talking about emotional depth from some of your favorite Fantastic Four characters, from the Council of Reeds to the death of a hero. This is where the saga truly starts. So let's get into it. Hero Scroll, kick us off, man. What are we talking about first?
Yeah, so Fantastic Four, Jonathan Hickman's run, a game changer for a lot of people. Personally, I really like this run, right? I think this is one of those runs that when a lot of people talk about, hey, what should I read in comic books? A lot of people will point towards Jonathan Hickman's work, and they'll always point you towards Fantastic Four because in reality, it does set up and start a lot of what goes into the Avengers run that he later does, and then also the 2015 Secret Wars as well. All that kind of starts here. The foundations begin, and you see a lot of it. But ultimately, I really like how I think for the most part, especially in the other Fantastic Four books that we've read so far, and the couple that I've read outside of the pod, they typically don't focus on one character. But this focuses a lot on Reed. Through and through, it's a Reed story, and I think both to the betterment of the story and also to some of its weaknesses are because of that, because it is a team book still. But I do like the fact that you do get to see more of Reed's perspective and get more of an emotional connection to him. Someone who's typically your more just pure logic-based character. You see some very nice emotional moments out of him and really get him to think. The rest of the cast great. And then ultimately what they set up towards the finale with, spoiler alert, Johnny's death, I think is great. So overall, yeah, this is one of those runs that I think I will continue to go back to every so often. I will say fair warning to those that aren't hear this. Think that if you are someone who does not have a lot of comic book knowledge in general, you might find this hard to read. But if you are someone who has a good foundation, especially on the Fantastic Four, I think you'll like this a lot.
Yeah, very well said. SB, how do you feel about these issues in Hickman's Fantastic Four?
I really enjoyed them. I thought each issue kind of felt like an adventure into the Fantastic Four, like adventures, and like explored like a different part of the universe. Something I was kind of like thinking. Like a couple issues going to the Mole Man Subterranea, and then obviously Council of Reeds being all out there. It dived into a lot of different areas of their lore, which was pretty cool. But like Hero said, if you don't know anything about it, it jumps around like so fast. And like the woman that you do see is like they're just like all like he comes to them for help, and it's kind of like it's weird. So like as a new person reading them, it won't like hit the same, I guess, or you might not understand like the past traumas and past like why it's significant that he's asking for help and stuff like that. But overall, I did enjoy it. Johnny's Johnny. It's this certain trend we got going on with all these three Fantastic Four stories that we've read thus far.
Yeah, it's an interesting, we'll talk about characters here in just a second, kind of highlighting them in the run, but this story does feel like you're stepping into a world. Not their world, but just a world. And the scale feels massive with this. And I do like you guys are saying, as you kind of, what's your background knowledge? Do you continue to come back and read it? It's something that I'm going to continue to come back to read, because I do think while there is a lot of homework that you have to do for this to kind of set up a little bit, not a lot and then a little bit, but you have to do some work to it. And I think the more you know and the more you learn about the world and the Marvel universe itself, especially leading up into Secret Wars, the better the stories are going to feel in this. And I think now going back through, because I read it once before, now I have a refresher, but reading the refresher at this point, very similarly to Superman, I do have more background knowledge coming into this. So it did kind of help in a lot of ways, but it did kind of hurt for me reading this in some other ways, to where what I did like in the previous stories, and if you haven't checked those out, definitely, shameless plug here for our podcast, but go listen to Life Story, and then obviously the trilogy of Galactus or Coming of Galactus video that we've done as well. But I think the things that make Reed feel really good, especially in Life Story, you don't get in this per se. But what I will say is I do like the relationship that he does have with his father at the beginning, to kind of kick off his obsession with solving everything. And what's the cost of that? Everything. Like, it's a really cool concept that they play with here with him. And when he does take moments to step out of that, it feels really good. But when he goes and he sinks deeper into it, the characters that surround his story, especially within his family and the lineage of, Nathaniel Richards, and then the other tie in the lore of like Immortus, and then you go through and like Galactus and Franklin and the kids and Doom and then Val, it's just like, it makes a cool story for Reed. And I think this one probably is the most interesting, but it's not the most satisfying story that we've read to this point for Reed.
I'd agree with that. Where it's like, to your point of the scale, I think especially when you compare it to something like the Coming of Galactus, that Galactus trilogy, you look at that book and you see how it changed the Fantastic Four to really continue to keep going into outer space and like show you that these bigger forces are at play. And I think back then, 50 issues deep into the series, like, that was a game changer. And I think it's very similar to this, where like they up the scale big time again, where in previous Fantastic Fours, that's what they were doing. And that's what the book continued to do overall, the series as Fantastic Four, where it was like, we're going to introduce these bigger concepts. We're going to show like multiple Galactuses and things like that.
Yeah.
Now it goes into the multiversal aspect and how Reed is not alone, and how Reed, I love that they show everything that it entails to be a part of the council, where it's like, yeah, you get the good, where you do get to terraform planets to feed races that need it. And you can terraform multiple uninhabited planets for the betterment of everybody. But then also, while for the betterment of everybody in a way, you do have to get your hands dirty. You have to basically lobotomize these Doctor Dooms and make them like shells of what they were.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, they won't stop. But then on the flip side, you also get to save planets because you get to perform basically scientific surgery on them.
Yeah.
It's just really cool how it ups the scale and the stakes without having to, I guess, betray the rest of the family in a way. If that makes sense.
No, agree. And one thing I want to add to that stakes and the multiversal aspect of this, if you're someone who's reading this for the first time and you're like, this is where you jump into Fantastic Four as you prepare for the movie that's coming out next month, at the time of this recording, I think it can feel a little off to people because of the things that you see in this, like the MacGuffins of the story. Like, 3 Reeds all have gauntlets, and you're like, okay, so the gauntlets don't feel like super important. Like, there's something greater than the gauntlet. You get multiple Galactuses in this story in a way.
And surfers.
Yeah, what?
And Silver Surfers.
And Silver Surfers. So it's like the things in these individual stories that we've read prior to 2009, 2010. This almost does like the Loki treatment of like, it puts them in the drawer and it's just like, yeah, they're there, but there's bigger things at play. There's bigger things that can happen. The only plus that I felt from reading that, though, if I were putting yourself in the MCU shoes, Franklin feels like the end goal in this, of like the pinnacle of power in this story for me. It didn't feel like Reed. It felt like Franklin. I don't know if you guys got a sense of how Franklin was kind of positioned in this. Like, he had a power limiter. People know that he's, very powerful, but I think at the end of the day, like, it just feels like there's something about Franklin that I think we'll talk about when we get on the movie. But it was also interesting for Valeria in this, and knowing the connections with Doom, and as Franklin kind of comes back from the future, um, hey, there's nothing you guys can do, but like, we went down the wrong path. It's like, Reed, you can try to do all this stuff, but like, something is off, something is wrong, something's going to happen. We just don't know what, but you guys need to prepare for it.
Yeah, with Franklin, I think it's one of those like, how do you? And I think I said this in the Coming of Galactus, where it's like, how do you juggle that like young child baby in the case of the First Steps film? How do you juggle someone with like that kind of a power and make them feel important to the story, and but not also take away from it? Because a lot of people can be like, well, they're just a kid, why would you make them the focus? But I think Hickman does a good job of setting up, like you said, Franklin to be that bigger thing, that bigger picture, where it's like, yeah, at the end of his birthday party, he's like just playing with universes. Like, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, that's a big deal when in this family everybody is extraordinary already. Valeria at 3 is able to talk to you like no one else will and solve all these other, huge mathematical equations, and she's already knows that she's like, yeah, I'm smarter than my dad. How do you make someone stand out when that's what they're competing with in a way, but they're still able to do that for Franklin?
Wait, quick question, SB. I want to throw this over to you. I'm very curious. Really quickly, especially in the beginning, how did this read compare to the read in the Coming of Galactus from the 60s, and then Life Story for you? Like, just the vibe. Like, did it feel like a good read? Was it an interesting read for you? Because this is the first time you've gone through this run, right?
Yes. I enjoyed him, but he felt too obsessive and too much at times. But I guess I get they were playing kind of this whole game issue by issue. I don't know. He felt good, but he didn't feel too like I liked him in Life Story more and in Coming of Galactus a little bit more. It was cool to see the morality duality of how he feels, of how he has to fix and solve everything at the cost of his family, and it was really good that he ended up not going down that path. Kind of realizing. So I did like that aspect.
I like that Hickman plays with the aspect that I think other writers kind of set up, especially back then, but especially something that I think if you saw our Century video, we kind of touched on just a little bit, where it's like they really asked the question if Reed is a good person because of how analytical he is, to where they kind of set it up with his conversations with his dad early on, where he's like, I don't feel like I'm normal. I feel like I'm weird. People aren't bullying me, but I feel more than, in a way.
Yeah.
And then when the Council of Reed come, you're just like, yeah, you're doing all these good things, but like you are making evil choices in a way. Like, when you start taking away others' wills because you feel like they will never change, how good is that, And then even when he's talking to Sue and she's trying to like be like, hey, what's going on, talk to me, and like, I'm upset, and then he's just like, yeah, I know what you feel. Like, that's kind of crappy. It's kind of crappy, and it's something that Hickman does later on play with in the Avengers and New Avengers runs, where it's like Reed will do whatever it takes, even if it means destroying another planet.
Yeah. Yeah, you get that very calculated, somewhat cold, cerebral version of him, and it does come out cool. As we'll talk about Secret Wars when we get to Secret Wars and just read in general. But yeah, I do think in this one, you guys nailed it. I don't love the read in this, although I think Hickman made him a little more likable in terms of like the jokes. The art, I think, for Reed in the beginning issues, closer to 570, I think portrayed, and like it felt like they were more aligned in ways of like the writing and then obviously the facial expressions. But then we kind of lost that. I'm going to reverse Uno card. Hero, how did you feel about the art in this in Hickman's Fantastic Four? Because for me, it was difficult. I'm not talking Jack Kirby like random panel here and then like the most detailed, mind-blowing panel the next. Like it was just like some goony panels of the faces that were on here. Like I don't know, like that's putting it lightly for me. I struggled with 30% of these issues, these 18 issues.
Yeah, no. When you start, and I want to say like throughout multiple points in the run as well, there's some panels that you're just like, man, this is some of the best artwork I've seen. Like genuinely up there. And then to borrow something from SB, it goes from like some of the best artwork I've ever seen to then the next issue, you're just like, what? Like genuinely, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I can do better. I can't because I'm not an artist. And I understand that a lot of these artists work really hard at their craft. But it's really hard for me to sit here and defend certain panels. And I know when we're editing this, I'm definitely going to flash some of these panels up here so people can see, especially what we're talking about. They're just egregiously bad. Like really, really bad to the point where Sue looks horrible. Reed genuinely feels like somebody you're going to see out of a horror film. The kids feel like the Titans from Attack on Titan. Like you're just like, ew, what is this? And then that quality just jumps up and down.
Yeah.
Consistently. And it kind of, I don't know for you guys, and maybe SB and Lou, you can talk about this, but like it took me out of the moment sometimes.
Oh yeah, it definitely did. It was offsetting, but like the panels that did really cooked though. I was taking a lot of screenshots throughout this. Some of them are really, really cool. The whole Galactus and 3 Silver Surfers and versus the Council of Reeds. That's beautiful. But then obviously the happy birthday, I'm not gonna say that word, but that panel, you come across that panel, I'm like, what comic issue am I reading right now? But
I think the art hurt like the kids in the story most.
Yeah.
Because it made me not really interested, but then you get like later on, you get some better panels with Franklin, and you're really interested in like Val being with Doom. So you can forgive like the lack of expression sometimes. I'm like, okay. But I will say the good was really good. When Ben took his serum, his Future Foundation serum, whatever it was, that was money. Johnny, money. The big climactic events had really good art. The ink was spot on. The shadowing was very good. Like even with Silver Surfer, didn't love his body shape. However, there were really cool elements to him. Like the scene itself looked really good. Which I just want to pause for 1 second. Well, actually, do we want to say any more about art? I do have one comment when it comes to Surfer.
I was going to say Valeria looks like an ankle biter.
For sure. I mean, it's game over. You'll be crawling for the rest of your life. Boys, girls, everyone watching. There has not been one story I've read that includes the Silver Surfer, or in the Fantastic Four that includes the Silver Surfer, that is not awesome. Even the movie that we watched. And if you want some feedback, go to the Point 3 podcast on YouTube or TikTok, and you'll know what we're talking about with Rise of the Silver Surfer. But Surfer is just the definition of aura.
Aura farming.
It is.
Yeah.
Every time Surfer shows up on pages, I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
And it's not over explained, it's not overdone, but it's always some of the coldest moments that you get where he's like, yo, I'm not here for you. Oh, by the way, you have a future version of Galactus, probably a problem. Bam, he's here. and you're just like, no, when I see you, something bad, like, why Galactus is gonna show up and we're screwed? Like, why are you here?
Go away.
Just go away, man. Like, go away.
Yeah. In regards to the Surfer, because I think Surfer is a part of this aspect, but like the way that the artists, most of them drew the sci-fi aspects, like between the Celestials, between Galactus, between
Dude,
like there's one very cool shot in, I think it's issue 572 or 3, where the Reeds are fighting the Celestials, and he's like, hey, I need to use my gauntlet. I need to get back to my universe somehow. And he's like, he opens his chest, and then it's just like a galaxy forming. It's super detailed, super cool. So the sci-fi aspects of that, which include the Surfer, they're super cool. They're super cool. I just wish it was more consistent and went throughout, like when we're in the negative zone, or I'm sorry, in the negative zone, and they're fighting the Annihilus wave, like super cool shots. When Johnny's in his last stand, you're like, and he's like, come on, and you just see him like this battle roar is like, yes. Like you feel that last stand, and it gets you hyped up. So I'd say it's like 80% good art, the 20% like funky bad art.
It's the lull in the story, and you can look past it, but I'm definitely someone where I'm like, okay, I see the words you're saying, and it puts me someplace, and then I look at the
face,
the art associated with them. I'm like, damn, no.
It's just especially hard, or again, and I think the character it does the most disservice to are all the children, but especially Valeria, where she's like, I'm super smart. And you're like, oh, you're like, ew, get out of here, you little freak.
Yeah. She crawls.
Yeah. You're like, oh, it's just unsettling in a bad way.
Well, good thing she's not going to be in the movie so far to what we know, but SB, what would you like to see taken from Hickman's Fantastic Four run across his 18 issues and put into the new FF movie?
I feel like it's cheap to say it, but definitely would like to see Franklin like get a little age up in post First Steps, or maybe even throughout First Steps. They have someone casted for him. Well, I would love to explore Franklin. The MCU is not ready for this dude, though. The MCU is not ready for him, but seeing how obsessed he is with Spider-Man has been getting me ideas. And like maybe seeing him, maybe give him an Uncle Tom Holland out there. Maybe Doom. Maybe Doom truly goes after Franklin. And Uncle Tom's gonna step in. Maybe I won't mind the our Doom J versus Tom situation. But
oh, don't say that. You know you would.
To protect Franklin, I'd be here for that. I'd do it.
I'd be here for that. Yeah, I think I would like that, and just Reed's obsession over just solving stuff. So obviously it's his greatest downfall, and I know we just said how it screws everything up, but seeing it just helps him, just helps his character a lot. I think Pedro is really good to portray that.
Rapid fire question for you: should we get a Council of Reeds?
No. In First Steps?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Hero?
Maybe in like Doomsday or Secret Wars, but I don't think so in First Steps.
Not in First Steps.
Agree. Point that you're certified. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's cross that off the list.
No council.
Yeah. No. Hero, what do you want to see adapted?
Yeah. So oddly enough, you kind of segued it perfectly into what I do want. I would love it because at the previous kind of run ends where they're kind of like alluding to the fact that there's more out there and like they're being watched. Like the universe is constantly being watched by these outside forces, and then it is the Council of Reed. Then they're like, yeah, we're watching you, like I think if they're able to at least allude to it and like kind of foreshadow that like at some point it will come into play, I think that would be really cool to see. Especially where Reed if his obsession with Galactus or his obsession with trying to save everybody is kind of leading him to nowhere, and he starts doing things. And I mean, I think they're already kind of alluding to it with the trailers where he's like, I stretch space too far. Paraphrasing here, but
Yeah.
he says something along those lines.
Stretch the bounds of space too far, he awakened.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah. I would love if that awakens more than Galactus. And it ripples throughout the multiverse. So
Yeah.
I think they can definitely incorporate those multiversal aspects and make the Fantastic Four like juggle a couple of different things at the same time, where it's like, yeah, you have Celestials on one front, but you also got Galactus on the other, and you also have the Mole Man and his Moloids coming up and being like, hey, I know we fought, but we need some help.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that actually, I don't want to say yeah like that ever again. But I delete that. But I think for me, I would love to see just the story element. Like, if this is an established Fantastic Four, I wouldn't mind if they tell the story kind of in this way and like follow this trail, minus the Council of Reeds, but just with their lore. Man Thinker, you get Mole Man, they're the High Evolutionary in there. You get really, I'm going to be honest with you, I probably think this is the best way to tell the Sue Namor story. It doesn't go too far, but you can see that, he's infatuated with her and she's like owning it. She's just like, no, you're wrong, dude. And I'm going to sit here and meditate and keep a bubble around this entire palace. Like, dude, I want Sue to be so OP in this stupid movie, like more than anything else. But then also too, I do really like that we've gotten less so back then, but I think as time has gone on, writers have taken Johnny as kind of that like uncle figure. And I think that's probably definitely going to be something we see in this, especially if Franklin does take them first steps. But I think that'd be cool. What I don't want to see, though, I don't want to see Ben get a serum that turns him back into a human in this movie.
No.
None of that. I do not want to see that at all.
Save that for way later.
Way later. This one's a little different. I don't feel as good taking things from this as I did from the Galactus trilogy and Life Story, because those two had Galactus as the endpoint. All roads led to Galactus. Whereas Galactus has been done and he's kind of a friend. Like, all the foes are almost friends in this.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like, hey, buddies.
Yeah.
Hey, friends, let's hang out. Yeah. It's interesting because, like, as I read this run again, I was like, of the similar mind, I'm like, ooh, this is more of a movie 3 type deal where it's like for a first steps film, it's hard to take as much, but I think there is stuff to take. For sure. And kind of adding to the Reed piece of like alluding to more, I do think it would be also cool, especially because of how tied into Secret Wars and Avengers it is. I would really like if they start to at least allude to that darker side of Reed, or to what that more analytical side can lead towards, especially where at the beginning where they're fighting what's his name, Wizard, and he's like, hey, we speak the language of gods, like we know math. That's what they speak, and that's what makes the inherent relationship between Doom and Reed always super interesting. And I think if you're able to encapsulate that well into First Steps, where he kind of understands that, like, the way he thinks leads to a lot more, more than just Galactus. I think they can do that really well with Doom, where if in Doom in particular feels that way too, they're able to see the polar opposite of each other, but see the similarities as well.
I think at the end of the day, this Reed needs to be a lot of ego, subtle ego, but not wrong. And I keep going back and thinking of that panel with when he comes out after meeting, I think the Council of Reeds proposed a question to join him.
Mhm.
I think is when he comes out, and that like it's like a hectic breakfast or something, or night. I can't remember what it is. And he has that confrontation with Sue. And she's like, you know, I've studied you more than anyone else. Like, I know, like that type of thing. I think now I'm sitting here, our third up video into Fantastic June, saying, I want Reed to be wrong with Galactus. And I know we've seen that in Life Story to where it's like he needs to think above, but he needs to break that like barrier into the multiverse. Like he's local, he gets universal, and how do you make him multiversal in one movie in the multiverse saga in the MCU? I think it does really just lean on his ego being shattered and being like very wrong. Like wrong to where it costs people their lives wrong. And he just commits to never being wrong again.
It could very well lead to a solve everything type situation.
Yeah.
Where even in an oddly alternate world where I could see maybe him, like Pedro Pascal, being the one to be like, I have to assemble more of me to understand these types of things. Where if they don't, depending how Secret Wars and everything goes, where it's like he's the one who assembles the Council of Reed.
Would you turn him into the Maker?
No.
Oh, shoot.
They could, but no.
Pedro, I don't think Pedro could pull off a Maker.
What? Have you watched Gladiator 2? Just kidding.
I don't know.
I
haven't, but
I think he could pull it off, but I think it'd be more interesting if you already have a Maker and have someone. If you have Reed kind of toy with that dark side a little bit and have someone else be the Maker, I think that would provide it to be a little more interesting. But it look, Pedro, I think, is a fantastic actor.
Oh.
So I do think he could pull it off. I wouldn't be mad. Do I want it? No, but I wouldn't be mad.
You think he could stretch his range out to them? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. That was bad. That was bad.
Oh,
That was
boo.
so bad.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
Boo.
Put the crickets in here.
He could. Theories. We're gonna have a theory video before this comes out. We're gonna throw all of our point 3 theories in there. I don't know, y'all. If you've read this, let us know what you think of it. Specifically, these 18 issues. Don't brain blast everything before and after and all that other stuff in between. Just take the Jimmy Neutron out of it and just give us your thoughts on these, because movie's coming out in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Like in a few, meaning more than 3. But the answers are out there. We're looking to find them for the most part. But I do think this one's a very interesting read, and one we're going to come back to again for Secret Wars, for sure. Probably the only one we're going to double dip out of this series, to be honest with you.
The one that deserves it the most.
Yes. Sans any Doom talk.
Correct.
All right. Any final thoughts here, gents?
Read it for yourself if you haven't.
Yeah, hit him with the line, because we definitely don't do it justice. We don't.
We don't. Yeah, you know, if this is your first time watching us, thank you for being here. But also, when it comes to any comic book story in particular that we talk about, read it for yourself. This story is one of those that's like genuinely a game changer. And I don't think we would ever do it justice, because there's a lot to break down. There really is a lot to break down. So read it for yourself. Enjoy it. Make your own opinions on it. I've seen varying opinions on this run before. And I think they're all right. So go read it for yourself. Enjoy it. And wait for first steps.
Yeah. Don't rush the read either. This one I would say take your time with. I wouldn't rush this one.
Read a couple issues, come back.
Yeah.
Read another couple.
Yeah.
Wait another day or two, come back.
Spider-Man's terrible in this run. Just kidding.
Honestly, that was a 10 out of 10 rage bait.
I have no comment. Franklin would like to beg differ, and I wouldn't go against what Franklin would go against.
You know what? There is one final thought. There is one final thought to
Oh.
sum up. These last two stories have made me more interested. Reading what we've read to this point has made me exponentially more interested in Franklin or the movie than I ever was if I didn't read these stories.
Agreed. Knowing who Franklin is, his personality, and who he gets to be, and his power set makes it very interesting.
I agree with that.
So we'll see y'all, but listen, till next time. We're close.
getting
We're
really
close. We're
close.
close. We're
Oh,
close.
we're nearing the end of Fantastic June. Only one more story.
One more story. That's it. So definitely stick along. Join our Discord because you know that MCU still has one more thing up their sleeve, y'all. So come back to the channel, hear our thoughts on it. But until the next episode and or video, 3 things that you have to do. SB, what are the most important ones?
You gotta keep watching. Maybe not keep watching Fantastic Four. You need to keep reading Fantastic Four and keep nerding out about Fantastic Four.
Well said. We'll catch you all on the next one.